Welcome, doctors. Before we get into the specifics of the day and all that we're involved with and struggling against, I just want you to give me an overview, both of you, of what you're doing now. Where have you taken, Dr. DeGruy, your argument about post-traumatic slave syndrome? Where has that taken you in the more than year and a half that you've been talking about it? Where are you now?
Yeah. Actually, the work, again, the post-traumatic slave syndrome was inspired by the idea of what I covered in the last chapter of the book, which is healing. You can't, I've often said you can't heal what you don't understand. So the whole focus, my whole purpose in doing all of it was to begin to look at what can we do to improve, to heal, to provide, I guess, tools for the future generation so that we don't continue to remain injured and re-injure ourselves and each other with our trauma. So my goal and my focus right now is really on the healing.
But if this happened, this trauma was inflicted on us centuries ago, how do we resolve that and heal?
Well, we can't resolve what happened. I mean, that happened.
But the pain.
What we have to do is like anything else, in order to, a physician that looks at you, looks at what's going on, looks at what maybe caused it, and then begins to affect some sort of a cure or remedy for it. And so what I think we have to do is we have to take a look at how we've been impacted. What does that look like? What is it, in a sense, metastasized into in terms of current society and current behavior? And then what can we do to move away from that? Because in addition to that, we have the conditional kind of environmental problems that are existing on top of those other issues. So we really need to navigate these waters well, so as to be prepared to deal with the contemporary issues facing us, as well as some of those residual behaviors and injuries that have affected us in the past.
All right, Dr. Nichols.
Well, my interest right now is twofold. One is to address audiences around the issues of organizational change. The very structure of organization has changed. Previously, we were a vertical and hierarchical organizational structure, and now it has moved to a horizontal and flat structure, which means people have to work on teams. You join a team based on the skills that you bring. That team solves the problem, it breaks up, and you go to another team. If you don't have the skills necessary, that is the most current skills necessary for that new team, you won't have a job. And it's nothing personal. So people that have never worked together have always said, well, I did my part and so on. Those things are not applicable in today's new organizational structure. The second part is to talk about cultural competence. And cultural competence has moved beyond ethnic identity and gender issues and so on. Cultural competence now says, how do you solve problems? How efficiently do you solve problems? And based on the model that I've developed, I look at epistemological differences. And these epistemological differences give us different approaches to problem solving. And if you don't have on your team people that have different problem-solving skills, you lose.
Team. What sort of arena are we talking about this problem solving taking place?
Well, right now it could be in a factory. The Japanese have used this model for many, many years now.
Those who haven't been laid off.
Yeah, semicolon, however, comma, yes. Factory workers in Japan meet in groups and discuss how to improve productivity, and they've done this for a very long time. Well, we've not done it. We've had someone that tells you how to improve it. But for people who are actually doing the work and concentrating on what could improve the skill, they have a contribution to make. So, team could also be a group of nurses on a floor. It could be a group of executives. Right now we have these major corporations, General Motors. Well, if you look at the people involved sitting around that table making the decision, they look pretty much alike. And their thought processes and problem-solving skills have been pretty much alike. So it has not been that successful. let me give you one study that is a part of a book that I would recommend to others to read. It's called The Difference, and the author is Scott Page. One part of that discusses some research work that was done in problem solving. They gave, well, I don't remember the exact numbers, but it's like 25 questions to males and females. And the males scored like 17 out of the 25. The women scored maybe 14 out of 25. But the real issue, the real important issue, is that there were 5 questions that none of the males answered correctly. However, those 5 questions were answered by all women correctly. Now,
What are you saying?
if you had included women in the decision-making process, instead of a top score of 17, you would have 17 plus 5, which would get you very close to 25. So by leaving out a different epistemological model, a different way of problem solving, you've reduced your ability to be as competent and efficient as you could be.
Which would you give more priority to, sexism or racism?
Well, I don't make the either or. They're both negative, and we have to eliminate both. Otherwise, we're not going to be successful.
No priority, equal?
Well, when you engage in either of those, you are eliminating a problem-solving set that could help you make the differentiation. Let me be more specific. When we look at global competition, people are not saying, well, did you put minorities, blacks, Hispanics on your team? Did you put women on your team? They simply say, is yours a winning team? So we are now beyond some of the things that used to divide us. Because if we don't pull together, we won't survive. Nobody in China is concerned about whether you have all white men on a team or minorities or women. They just want to know, can we beat you? And that's what they're out to do.
But doctor, there's some in the hood
Yes.
who say we can't get work because of our pigmentation.
Yeah, well, that's always been true. I've been black for a long time, so that's very real for me. But what I'm saying is that we're closer to a time than when that's being transcended. Let me give you another example. You have a young black woman engineer in polymers, okay, graduate of Case Western Reserve. Procter & Gamble only hired the best, okay? They don't make the differentiation between women or men, so they just hire the best candidates they can get.
Let me be rude and interrupt because it's time for a break.
Okay.
And continuity will resume right after this. All right, where were we, Dr. Nichols?
Well, we were talking about a young woman who went to work for Procter & Gamble,
Right.
who had her Bachelor's of Engineering in Polymers from Case Western Reserve. And as I had indicated, Case Western Reserve, Procter & Gamble only hires the best. They don't, lower standards to bring women and minorities into the organization. They just hire the best. When she got there, this is many years ago now, there was some recalcitrance on the part of the people that were already there to put her on major projects for teams. And after being there for a very short time, she decided that she couldn't make the growth necessary there because they wouldn't give her the project she needed. She left. Well, in the exit interview, she didn't say anything because you need another job. But when I went in to do some work with them, I said, well, let's go find these people that left 5, 10 years later and find out what they're doing and why they left, and they'll really tell you. She told them that she felt she was being hampered in her production because she was a woman, 1, and she was black, 2. And she went someplace else. Well, now she's their biggest competition. And they would like to get her back, they want to pay her more money and so forth, but, what she did was she took her skills and went to a place where they appreciated them, gave her the opportunity, and now she's competition for them. So that waste of human resources we can't afford today. because China, India, and these other countries are educating all of their people and putting them out there, and they're our competition. So
Well, a lot of these jobs have been